Hello YouTube, Bane666 here. So hopefully this is my third and final response to Chrisiousity. I'm hoping to get through all the material that's left in a relatively short time, and hopefully I won't have to do another one after this. As I've said in the previous episodes, there'll be a list of videos down below which you should watch beforehand so you have proper context, so I'll leave the links below. And in this particular episode, Chrisiousity tries to be funny. Now, all I've got to say about that is she really should just stick to logic. Oh, hold on, she's shit at that too.
Yeah, I don't read minds, so apparently you think you do?
Chrisioity doesn't read minds, which is why she knew exactly what the 2,366 people who signed the petition were thinking, right? I mean, she wouldn't base it off 3 comments that she read, which represent 0.13% of all people who signed the petition. No, of course not. And she doesn't read minds, which is exactly how she knew that Men's Rights Melbourne were only in it to pocket the money, as she put it. You know, that motivation which, if she can't read minds, she just must have made up out of thin air. Right, Chrissy? Based on absolutely no fucking evidence whatsoever.
Oh, I think you forgot some things here. Things we just went over. Like I was right about that statement when I said the top comments were hinky, and you even said I was right.
Oh yeah, we agree the comments exist, Chrissy. Where we disagree is your assertion that 3 comments represent the 2,366 people who signed the petition, right? That's an incredibly small sample size you're using there, Chrissy. An exceptionally small sample size. But somehow, according to you, they're representative of the majority of the people who signed the petition.
And I was right about what the email said. All I did was report what the email said, and we don't have any actual evidence other than Dave's say-so at this point that the Keno Theatre was lying.
Well, I've since provided you with evidence, Chrissy, that they were. But even if you didn't have that evidence, if you use simple logic, you should have been extremely suspicious of their claim, as I explained in my last video to you. Do I need to look up the word skeptic and explain it to you, maybe, Chrissy?
And I was right that they were going to pocket the money because he just confirmed that.
Yeah, I covered this in the last episode, Chrissy, where I pointed out that the term pocket the money literally means to steal money. Now, I'm wondering, are you sticking to that allegation that they were lying to the Keno to steal money? Because that's definitely not what David was saying, is it now?
Did you forget all that, Bane? Did ya? Huh? How come you could forget so many things? They were all in your video that you're making right now. Do you have the short-term memory of a tsetse fly, or are you a liar? Because there are no other possibilities.
Legit.
Okay, stop here for a sec, because it's important for the next part that we put what I said back together. Put the puzzle pieces back together. Because sometimes when you break up a statement, it changes the meaning. Like now. Here is what I actually said in context. So, I'm looking it over and it's incredibly sketchy, you know what I mean. There's just no way I can look and say, oh, that's totally legit. There's important context there.
Yeah, and the thing is, Chrissy, you come to this conclusion based on next to no information, incredibly sketchy information. You fill in all the gaps with your own imagination, right? You read 2 or 3 comments on a petition and then make the assumption that the majority of the people who signed the petition believe exactly the same thing, and they just must all be secret MRAs as part of a publicity stunt, right? Based on no evidence. 0.13% of all people who signed the petition is not fucking evidence. And then you read a couple of lines from the Keno letter. You don't question whether it might be legit or not. At no point do you consider that maybe they might be lying to save face and to try to navigate the public relations nightmare that they were going through. No, that never crossed your mind. So instead, what you do is you just create out of thin air a motivation for Men's Rights Melbourne based on no evidence. You accuse them of pocketing the money, and let's not fuck around here, Chrissy. That is a fucking allegation. And then based on this wonderfully researched evidence, large portions of which consist entirely of your imagination, you come to the wonderful conclusion, that being the skeptic that you are, that there's just no way that this couldn't be some kind of scam. Fucking incredible, Chrissy. You're an inspiration to us all, Chrissy. You really are. Your ability to process information, most of it purely invented in your own head, is astounding. Absolutely astounding. We should create a Skeptics Award just for you, I think.
Of course I think it's possible. I already told you I thought it was possible. Again, Bane, you really cannot hold information in your head. To those people who are capable of remembering things, remember in the beginning of this nauseating journey into Bane's world, oh bullshit, when I asked you to take note of what I said? That when I first heard about this, that I and Christy Winters and Micaiah had all spoken out against the Red Pill petition. So, look at this tweet. This is Christy Winters tweeting out the article, which is written by a feminist, is saying, don't do this. And she's concurring and saying, nope, don't do it. Don't do this petition thing. And then I'm saying, on top of that, I'm tweeting it out again and saying, nope, don't do this. Please don't do this. Right? See? Now, how bad at research are you, Bane, huh? Because I told you this was there. I told it to you. You had it in your own video. Does this sound like a person who thinks it's impossible that a feminist would do this in any situation? How lazy you are, Bane. How badly do you suck at research, Bane?
Oh, Chrissy. So smug, but so little to back it up. So, yes, it is true. It is true that Chrissy and Micaiah both tweeted out that, the people shouldn't sign the petition, etc., etc., etc. But then they turned around and made every single fucking excuse they could for the people who did sign it. Oh, no, they can't be actual feminists. They must be men's rights activists pretending to be feminists so they can get publicity, right? With absolutely no fucking evidence. And Micaiah went on about how people weren't angry at the Red Pill because it's about men's rights activists, even though many of them have actually said that. No, they're angry because the movie is biased and it doesn't present both sides. It only interviews a certain type of feminist, like Shanti Binks. Even though that's not true, it interviews Michael fucking Kimmel, who's a professor at a university teaching gender studies. Not to mention numerous other feminists who are in the movie, prominent feminists. Not to mention the numerous feminists that Cassie J asked to be in the movie, but they refused because they didn't want to be in a movie about men's rights. So just, we'll just forget all that and just make up shit, right? Because that's what you did in this hangout. That's what you and Micaiah both did in this hangout. Just made shit up. So it doesn't really matter that you said people shouldn't sign it, Chrissy, because your actions after that fucking contradicted it. It's like someone saying, hey, I'm not a racist, but, I think black people are inferior, right? The second statement kind of contradicts the first one just a little bit, don't you think? So I find it very hard to take that first statement of yours serious, considering your actions afterwards. But, let's continue. I think Chrissy's got some more attempts at humour to get through.
How bad your memory is, Bane. how much of a liar you are. Just a big old lying liar who lies, aren't you, Bane? I mean, I want to give you the benefit of the doubt. I mean, I don't know you, but if I was going to give you the benefit of the doubt, maybe I could say that you're a Russian spy.
What?
Cracking under the pressure, or perhaps, well, you show yourself in that Kool-Aid thing, right? Maybe you're some weird, hideously deformed goldfish. They can't remember stuff for more than a minute or two either. But that red goop you're soaking in, and it granted you the ability to speak even as it drove you mad, and made you think you could read minds. That must be it. There are no other possibilities. Well, it's interesting you bring this up, Bane, about my side, because I've been going through your comment section under this video, and all I see is outrage and a total lack of skepticism. I'm a liar, I need to change my tinfoil tampon.
I'll admit it, I did laugh at that tinfoil tampon comment. Come on, Chrissy, you have to admit that was pretty funny.
I'm weak, delusional, dim-witted, narcissistic. I pity her husband and children. She's a lying sack of shit. There are even people who, before I had even written the script for this response video, are saying, oh, she's gonna lie.
I know, Chrissy, their ability to predict the future is fucking uncanny. Do you think I should ask them for the lotto numbers?
Apparently they just know. And yet, not a single one seems to have noticed the multiple irregularities in your discussion here.
And what would they be, Chrissy? Because I think I've counted every argument you've put forward.
There's no, hey, why are you putting so many words in her mouth? Or,
Chrissy, I can honestly say I would never put anything in your mouth. Hold on, that doesn't sound right. Shit. Now, Zana, Joshy's going to be accusing me of things. Fuck. Oh well.
How dare you! How dare you! Disgusting! Disgusting!
or taking things out of context, or why are we just assuming Dave is telling the truth and the Keno theater is lying?
Yeah, good questions, Chrissy. Like, why do you invent the motivation for Men's Rights Melbourne? You know, just created out of thin air based on fucking nothing. I think that's a good question too, you know? And why is it that you only present one side, the side of the Keno, and not the other side of the argument, so people can make up their own mind? I think that's a good question too, Chrissy. Maybe you could answer that one as well, you know, just while we're asking each other questions.
With no evidence. Should I assume that all MRAs are incapable of looking at an argument objectively, since that's what I see repeatedly from your side?
Okay, so let's address these couple of comments that Chrissy was talking about. She seems to like taking a couple of comments and then applying them to the whole. It seems to be a bit of a running theme with you, Chrissy. You know, just read a couple of comments and then, hey, apparently everyone's like that. But anyway, let's address these comments and get the whole thing out of the way, right? So, unfortunately, I don't have a tinfoil tampon, nor do I really have somewhere to put it if I did have one. But I do have a tinfoil fedora, you know, being an MRA. So I figure if I'm going to address these comments, I should address these comments the way Chrissy would, right? Using Chrissy logic. You know, create a conspiriosity theory. So, here's my tinfoil fedora, and now I'm going into Chrissy logic mode. Okay. Now, considering Chrissy just read a few comments and assumed that everyone who signed the petition must be an MRA, or the majority of people who signed the petition must be an MRA, and she had no actual evidence for this, I guess I can just assume that any comment that Chrissy doesn't like on YouTube or on Twitter or wherever must automatically be a feminist pretending to be an MRA or an anti-feminist or whoever, right? I can just make that assumption. Don't need any evidence. Don't need to use logic. I can just assume automatically must be a feminist pretending to be an MRA. But, you know, I did do some research just like Chrissy. I followed Chrissy's example and I went to Twitter. I was on there for maybe a minute and a half, possibly 2 minutes. I'm not sure. You know, I was reading the paper and drinking my coffee at the same time. So it could have been 2 minutes. And I looked on Twitter and I didn't find any evidence to contradict my made-up make-believe theory, which I just created out of thin air. There was nothing on there which said it was wrong with my minute and a half, possibly 2 minutes of research. So I'm guessing it has to be 100% true. No doubt about it. No, I can't imagine it would be anything else. It has to be that. What else could it be? It's pretty hinky, after all. I just can't think of any other explanation than any comment that Chrissy doesn't like from now on has to be an undercover feminist pretending to be someone else. And if Chrissy wants to criticize my logic in this, well, I'm not going to offer an actual argument here because, you know, I'm using Chrisiousity standards. I'm not going to offer an actual argument. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to accuse her of trying to create drama, right? And then I'm just going to double down on my arguments and pretend that they're right. And I'll play any fucking word game I possibly can to try to wriggle out of them. Because that's what Chrisiousity would do. Right, Chrissy? Anyway, I think I'm going to take off the tinfoil fedora because I can feel my IQ plummeting. So what's next, Chrissy? Come on, let's get this over with.
I mean, I see it all the time. They hear feminist and they respond with all the rational good sense of a pack of rabid possums.
You know, Chrissy, this may actually shock you, but I have to agree with you here. There are people on our side who unfortunately are like that. Their first reaction whenever they hear feminism or feminist is an angry one. And we should be able to, you know, calm down and actually look at arguments and tackle the arguments which are being made, right? But I hope, Chrissy, I hope that you're willing to acknowledge that there are people on your side which are exactly the same. And I would have to say the main difference between the people like that on your side and the people like that on our side is the people like that on our side tend to leave comments on YouTube comment sections or on Twitter, whereas the people on your side are given jobs in journalism and in universities. So, you know, there's just that little bit of difference between the two, you know? What?
Oh, for Christ's sakes, Bane, no it wasn't. Keep it straight, Russian fish spy.
What?
I was answering a question, remember? The question was, why are feminists trying to shut down the movie? And I am simply pointing out that the Melbourne situation is the outlier here, considering the documentary has a worldwide release in multiple cities.
No longer just an outlier, though, is it, Chrissy? We're talking about Melbourne, Sydney, and Ottawa now. That's 3 places for a movie which has an extremely limited release. So, hardly just an outlier. And when was the last time you heard of a documentary being blocked in 3 cities? I can't think of one. Could you name one? Just one documentary?
And you're going to go on to mention something about Sydney too, which I had heard nothing about at the time. And that just makes it seem like Australia is more the issue. But
yep, and now Canada as well. Don't forget Canada.
Whatever, I don't know. The point was never that it was not a big deal, as you would have noticed by the fact that every single feminist in this group had, as I stated in the very frickin' beginning, had spoken out to our fellow supposed feminists not to boycott this movie.
And here you go again, Chrissy, using the word supposed. So yeah, you told them not to sign the petition, and then you make excuses for the ones who did. You bend over backwards to make excuses for these people. You create conspiracy theories based on no fucking evidence in an attempt to excuse these people, to disassociate them with feminism. And you fucking wonder why you get criticized. Wow.
For the record, I could give a shit. I could, in point of fact, not care in the slightest about this movie. I hope everyone who wants to see it gets to do so in the venue of their preference. I hope they get to have popcorn and snow caps and gummy bears and sit on red velvet seats and make out with their significant others during the credits. I am not threatened. I am not disturbed. I do not give a fuck.
Yeah, you just make excuses for those who do, Chrissy.
Okay? Okay, so now I'm gonna skip some more redundant crap. Oh. Go watch it if you haven't and you want to. It's linked. Oh my god. Lord Almighty, Bane, never say anything once when you can say it 5 times in a row, huh? I swear it's like 50 first dates, only with a shorter attention span. Well, I'll tell you what I will do, Bane. I will apologize in all sincerity to Men's Rights Edmonton, or to this Nick person, formerly of Men's Rights Edmonton, for dragging him into this for no reason whatsoever. He did absolutely nothing. It was my error that has even had his name brought up. Nick, I am sorry for besmirching your name in this sordid affair. As far as apologizing for giving my opinion in response to a question based on the information I had at the time, fuck no.
Yeah, what about the allegation towards Men's Rights Melbourne of pocketing the money, Chrissy? That's what you need to apologise about, right? Not having an uninformed opinion, not making up conspiracy theories, but the fucking allegation you made about them lying to the Keno with the purely made-up motivation, the motivation you created in your own head, of them wanting to, quote, pocket the money.
Not to Dave, who seems like a nice enough guy. And I feel the need to point out that saying there may have been shenanigans is not the same thing as saying Dave had anything to do with potential shenanigans. That seems to have escaped you, but it's very much true. I can think of 4 to 5 situations off the top of my head that fit the knowns in this case. Not all of them equally likely, but all possible. Alright, so now here, Bane, he goes on and on and on about the same points he already brought up, so I will spare you, dear watcher. And now I will bring you to the part where, and many of you will notice that I'm a little annoyed with Bane, a lot more so than I generally get, because I don't usually get very annoyed, but in this case, a little bit, okay? So now, allow me to show you why.
Now, you said in your anti-SJWs, questions for anti-SJWs video, that you're serious about working with people from the other side, and you've started a group doing that. Fantastic. Fucking fantastic. That's great. I personally have been talking to people from the other side for a long time now, having constructive conversations. But when you put out stuff like this, Chrisiousity, it makes it a little bit harder to take that serious. So I'm hoping that this is just some laziness on your part, because trust me, the information I presented in this video was not hard to find. So I'm hoping it's laziness and not dishonesty.
Oh, you had to do it, didn't ya, Russian fish spy?
What?
You had to hit below the belt. Do you even care that we're trying to help people? Men people. Do you even give a shit? One shit? Or is it all about the pwnage and the drama for you?
Pwnage and the drama. Yeah, Chrissy, clearly you do not understand what I do on my channel. So let me explain it to you, right? What I do, mainly, apart from talking about men's issues, is I debunk bullshit which is spread about the men's rights movement. About 99% of which comes from the feminist media, right? Where we get a constant stream of lies, misinformation, and bullshit. And you now have taken part in that, Chrissy, with your fucking made-up conspiracy theories and your allegations towards Men's Rights Melbourne of dishonesty concerning money, right? Remember them? That's why you got my attention. I'm not doing it for fucking drama or pwnage or any bullshit like that. I'm doing it because you're spreading misinformation and fucking lies. Now, I don't care if you have legitimate criticism for us. By all means, do legitimate criticism of the men's rights movement. I have no problem with that. If you make a good argument and fucking present evidence for a change, I might even agree with you. But when you just make up shit, and then you fling that shit at us, right? That's when you get my attention. That's when you fucking piss me off, and that's when you get a response video. So don't try to hide behind this bullshit of drama and pwnage or any bullshit like that, right? Because it really is fucking weak, Chrissy. Either make good arguments or don't fucking talk about us. Because when you make piss-poor fucking arguments which spread misinformation and lies, you're going to get another video about you. That simple.
Alright, I will take a moment to answer this. When our little group, Against the Odds, got together, we had a discussion amongst ourselves where we talked about how we would handle this. Because for people like me and Demotivator Opinion, for instance, who are in this group, we're critical of MRAs. And there are multiple MRAs and conservatives, like Skeptor, like No More Dogma, who criticize feminists and social justice types. And through discussing this together, we decided that the only way for us to be able to continue to move forward as a group, working to help men, was that we would keep our activism and our YouTube stuff separate. Because we all plan to continue to speak our minds, and that's okay. Nobody needs to pull punches on either side, and we just move along, ignoring our personal issues in order to work for the greater good. Not everyone can do this, and not everyone wants to, so that's fine. But some of us can, and we do. But
let me tell you a little story, Chrissy. Someone from your group asked me to recommend someone for a hangout that you guys were doing, and I recommended Danny. Now, if anyone out there doesn't know Danny, I'll put a link to his channel below. Feel free to go check out his channel and subscribe. Danny's a good guy. Danny's an MRA. He's very open-minded. He actually, gives a shit about men and men's issues. And he's more than willing to have constructive conversations with people from the other side. In fact, just a couple of weeks ago, Danny, Emma from your group, Diane and Philly, who's a feminist, and myself had a 2-hour conversation. We all enjoyed it. There was no screaming or yelling or anything like that. It was a pleasant, open-minded, enjoyable conversation. We all left as friends, and it was very constructive. So, Danny's not a bad person, and I thought he was the perfect choice for this hangout, but he was rejected, Chrissy, because a couple of people on your side said they would not turn up if Danny was on the hangout. So much for putting personal stuff aside to actually work on the issues. Right, Chrissy? Now, Danny doesn't know why these particular individuals had an issue with him. He thinks it may be something to do with something he said about Trump or something like that, right? Because, that's the type of thing we should let get in the way of actually discussing men's issues. Right, Chrissy? So much for putting differences aside. But I can tell you another story as well, because you guys were doing some charity hangouts, and for the record, I give you full credit for doing that. That's fantastic. That's the type of stuff both sides should be getting together to do, right? You get my full support for that. In fact, I was on the second one, which was hosted by Skeptor. But I was asked to recommend someone for the first one, and I recommended Paul Elam. Now, I know a lot of people out there might think that was a bit crazy, but listen to my logic, right? Chrissy started this group, which is meant to be both sides working just on men's issues and putting aside all differences. Not talking about feminism or anti-feminism or the men's rights movement or anything like that, right? It's just about the issues. Now, there are some people on my side who are very skeptical of this, and I thought to myself, what better PR for Chrissy's group than to have Paul Elam and a group of feminists just talk about male suicide or male circumcision or anything, something like that. Not anti-feminism or anti-MRA bullshit. Not screaming and yelling at each other, but actually talking about the fucking issues. Who, on my side, could then doubt your group, Chrissy? I fucking handed you this PR win, right? I spoke to Paul. He guaranteed me he'd be on his best behaviour. He guaranteed me he wouldn't go into any anti-feminism stuff. He would just talk about men's issues. And if you don't believe Paul can be like a pleasant, open-minded person on a hangout, I recommend you go and look at the hangout he did with the Skeptic Feminists. He wasn't abusive. He wasn't angry or screaming. He hardly raped anyone during that hangout, Chrissy. That's a joke, by the way, in case you weren't sure. But here was this PR win for you guys, right? The most notorious MRA working with a bunch of feminists for the issues of men. Who could dispute your group after that? But, some people on your side had some major issues with Paul, so he was rejected. Now, I can't say I'm overly surprised at that. I am surprised about the Danny thing, though. That really surprised me. And to be fair, Chrissy, it's your group. You can have on Hangouts whoever you want, right? I'm not telling you you have to have Paul or Danny or anyone else like that on. It's your Hangouts. You're in charge. You can have on anyone you fucking want. Anyone from our side, anyone from your side. I really don't care. It's your business. But don't tell me that you're putting your differences aside just to work on the issues. Because clearly some people aren't. Right? And if those people can be skeptical of people on our side, if they can say they don't want to work with certain people on our side because they don't like them because, they said something about Trump or some other fucking insignificant bullshit, then I think some people on our side can be a little bit skeptical of people on your side in return, Chrissy. Or does that skepticism only flow one way? Or is this all one-sided, Chrissy? Is that what you're saying? That, we have to put our skepticism aside and we have to put our differences aside, otherwise we get accused of not actually caring about men's issues and just being interested in drama and Pwnage, right? That's what you said to me. But there's a completely different standard for people on your side. Right, Chrissy?
Or, you know what? Alternatively, we could just be fucking people. No more of this drama bullshit that gets us nowhere and helps no one. Instead, we could just give each other a break and provide some basic charity in the interests of actually finding some truth in all this crap.
Which is the exact opposite of what you did with Men's Rights Melbourne, isn't it? Now, you had the opportunity to say, hey, I stuffed up. Sorry, Men's Rights Melbourne. Sorry, David. I shouldn't have accused you of trying to pocket the money. But instead, you had to double down, didn't you? And the thing is, Chrissy, if you had have, apologised and said you made a mistake or whatever, I would have given you the benefit of the doubt and I would have respected you for actually doing it, right? But no, you had to double down, and any chance of gaining my respect is now gone.
Instead of making assumptions, we could just ask each other what we think. And to that end, you did bring me some info I didn't have. You found that Stop MRA tweet, which was a part of the puzzle I didn't find. And that changed my mind, not as much as you would want, probably, but... So, if my skepticism scale, my continuum, right, runs from, OMG, so true, to, haul that load of shit back to your field, peasant, then right up by number 1 is where I was at first, kind of close to Amy Poehler there, and then after first looking into it, then I went over to number 2, right, with the gladiator guy, Joaquin Phoenix there, and then number 3, the star. It's where I am right now, in the reserving judgment place, and evidence in either direction would change this again.
Yeah, look, Chrissy, if you have 2 positions, and those 2 positions are equally as likely to be true, then I would agree the middle position is the place to be, until you get further information. Once you have further information, then you may go to one side or the other, and quite likely, as information comes in, you will move back and forth, right? That's a perfectly reasonable thing to do. That's what skeptics should do. But if you have 2 very different positions, one which is very, very likely, right? We know that it has happened before, and in fact has happened since, and all the evidence would suggest that it is in fact true, and it makes perfectly logical sense. It's reasonable, and you don't have to, bend reality in any way or fill in any gaps or anything like that. It's complete the way it is. And then on the other side, you have a position which I guess is technically possible but extremely unlikely, because you have to fill in all these missing gaps of information, which you don't have, right? You just have to basically make assumptions and make things up. It would also be extremely difficult to pull off based on the information we have, right? It is not only less likely, but extremely improbable. And whereas the first position has evidence, the second one has none. The middle position is not the reasonable position under these circumstances. The reasonable position is with the first scenario, the most likely scenario, the one which is supported by evidence. To say that you're supporting the second one, which is less likely, is fucking crazy. And then to shift to the middle position, as if that's somehow more reasonable, is also crazy. Now, look, I'll grant you this. If more information comes to light, and the second position suddenly becomes more reasonable, then sure, yeah, shifting to that position is exactly what you should do. But that hasn't happened, and it's extremely unlikely that's going to happen. Unless, of course, Chrissy, you present evidence that there was a website or a Reddit post or something like that telling MRAs to go and pretend to be feminists and vote for this petition. If you present that evidence, I'll agree with you. I'll shift my position, right? But until you present something like that, the second position is fucking unlikely, unreasonable. And presently, based on the information we have, it's a fucking conspiracy theory. You're suggesting there's a vast network of MRAs conspiring together when there's no fucking evidence for it. So no, under these circumstances, the middle ground is not the reasonable position, Chrissy.
Because that's what's supposed to happen. And yeah, if no one asks me, I'll likely keep my opinion to myself, because without strong evidence, that's what is best. But if someone asks, I will say what I think, because that's what I do.
Yeah, and you're entitled to your opinion, Chrissy. I in no way would stop you from expressing your opinion. But if that opinion is misinformation and false accusations, then I will call you out on it. That's simple.
Now, as far as all this calling people names and well poisoning and thumbnails, ad homing, making guesses as to people's internal thoughts and motivations.
Okay, so let's have a listen to these accusations again and break them down one by one.
Now, as far as all this calling people names...
Calling people names? What names exactly did I call you, Chrissy? Now, I did accuse you of either being lazy or being a liar. I admit that. And the reason for that is because you took 0.13% of the people who signed the petition and assumed that the majority are exactly like that. Now, I stand by what I said. Either that is exceptionally fucking lazy, or you know that it was bullshit and you lied about it. Those are the two options based on your actions, Chrissy. And yeah, I know you said that those two comments that you took were the most upvoted. But you know, like I said in my first response to you, you neglected to take into account the fact that those comments were left after the petition was successful and that people don't need to sign the petition to upvote them. Blows your entire argument out of the water. Now you, on the other hand, Chrissy, you may not have called people names, but you did make accusations towards Men's Rights Melbourne based on fucking nothing. I consider that to be a lot more serious than calling someone possibly lazy or a liar. But, you know, that's just me.
And well poisoning and thumbnails.
Poisoning the well and thumbnails. Let's start with thumbnails. Really, Chrissy, you're upset with the thumbnail that I used. That's a big concern, really. As for poisoning the well, how exactly did I do that? An example might be good.
Ad homing, making guesses as to people's internal thoughts and motivations.
You know, Chrissy, ad hom and name calling, basically the same thing, right? As for guessing a person's motivation, once again, let me point out, that's exactly what you did with Men's Rights Melbourne. You invented, from your own fucking imagination, a motivation for their actions, which actually weren't their actions at all. You created this out of thin fucking air, Chrissy. And you also seem to be able to read the minds of the 2,366 people who signed the petition. Now, I'll grant you, you know what at least 3 of them were thinking, but that's it. The others, you're just making an assumption.
If you're over 22, you should be kind of trying to minimize this shit. You should be kind of over it, right? Nobody's perfect. Everybody does it sometimes. You should try to not do it very much, though, right?
Now, I'm actually unsure if this is meant to be a subtle dig at me or not. The young and inexperienced accusation is quite often made by people on Chrissy's side, particularly in the media, towards people on my side. So let's, for argument's sake, assume that it is. It might not be, but let's, for argument's sake, assume that that's what she's saying here, and I'll address that argument. It's a funny argument to make because it shows how very little Chrisiousity actually knows about me, because I'm actually a fair bit older than 22. In fact, Chrissy, I suspect that I'm probably older than you. And the really ironic thing is, I know quite a few people who are 22 and younger who would run circles around you when it comes to logic and skepticism. Fucking leave you in the dust, despite their age. Now, it is true, as you get older, you should gain more wisdom and knowledge and etc., etc. But as you clearly demonstrate, Chrissy, not everyone does that, do they?
And if you don't, if that's more than you can handle, well, fine, but don't expect me to respect you. In this case, I had a person who I did respect from your side saying I should give this a chance, and we'll see. I can't say I'm hopeful, but I'm willing to keep an open mind. It'll be as it'll be, right?
I actually find it amusing, Chrissy, that you call yourself a skeptic and you think that anything you've presented here will in any way change my mind. You're yet to produce any evidence. Nothing. Show me some evidence, Chrissy. Show me some evidence that MRAs were plotting together to sign the petition. There must be a post somewhere, publicly, right, on Reddit or on A Voice for Men. Has to be something somewhere. Otherwise, it's purely your invention, from your imagination. And I'm not exactly sure what you would do or say to wriggle out of the accusations that you made against Men's Rights Melbourne. I'm guessing you'll say there'll be some alternative to the meaning behind pocket the money. Well, a simple search on the internet shows what context that statement is continuously used in. Now, I might have given you the benefit of the doubt if you had have chosen to apologise after my first response video to you. If you had said, yeah, look, I went too far, made a mistake, that would have been that. But instead, you doubled down and you were fucking smug about it. If you're going to be arrogant, Chrissy, at least have something to fucking back it up. And here's the tip. Your imagination isn't enough.
Now, Bane, let's talk about what you should do for me. Because it seems to me that whether you're a Russian spy,
What?
goldfish chemically engineered with red goop to talk while being completely mad and breaking under the pressure. I mean, skulls don't blink. I'm just saying, skulls don't blink. And that's the best case scenario. That's me being as generous as I could possibly be. Because the only other option is that you're a liar. A terrible, vicious liar. That's the only other possibility. Either way, you owe me an apology for misrepresenting what I said, for refusing to do basic research, for saying things about me that weren't true, and not only that, but you owe all feminists everywhere an apology. So, first of all, when you do this apology thing, this Russian fish spy...
What?
blinking skull Kool-Aid dude is no good. I've already looked at him too long. I don't want to look at him anymore. I think you should use a new avatar, like Hello Kitty wearing a Wonder Woman costume. That strikes the right tone. And she could be having a tea party with Beyonce and Christy Winters. And, you know, I know maybe apologizing isn't something you do a lot, so I've written a script for you to read. My dearest Chrisiousity, as well as all feminists everywhere, and especially Lacey Green and Anita Sarkeesian and Makaya, whose name I have said so poorly in the past. I am deeply ashamed to the very core of my sorry excuse for a heart that I've wronged you all so viciously, so maliciously. I'm unable to eat or sleep. My eyelashes have fallen out and they are swimming in red goop. I am nothing. I'm a loser. I'm a vile, empty shell full of darkness and Kool-Aid. There is no hope for me at all, but that I might be forgiven by your gracious and magnificent selves. And even then, I am unworthy of redemption. I am the living embodiment of disgrace. I would pray for God's mercy if there were any point. Instead, I am bereft and begging sympathy from the devil himself. And after this, when you're done with that, I would like you to sing I Was Wrong from Social Distortion, and then, you know, at that point I figure we'll be mostly square. That you're a liar, a terrible, vicious liar. That is the only two possibilities that exist. So, if you're not just lying about what I said to poor Dave here, then maybe you're like one of those Russian spies. 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 Maybe you're like one of those Russian spies.